Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The package arrived on a Tuesday, and that's when I knew my marriage was over. Not because Rachel ordered lingerie. Hell, I would have celebrated that. We hadn't been intimate in months, and I'd started wondering if she'd forgotten we were married, or just decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. No, what made my stomach drop wasn't the Victoria's Secret box sitting on our kitchen counter. It was the fact that she'd hidden it from me. My name is Nick Callahan, and until that Tuesday, I thought I was living a pretty decent life. 38 years old. Decent looking if you squint, making good money as an IT consultant in Dallas. 2 great kids, Maddie, 11, and Lucas, 8, who still thought their old man hung the moon. A wife who used to laugh at my jokes and didn't mind that I left my socks on the bedroom floor. But lately, Rachel had been different. Cold. Distant. Like she was living in our house but not really with us. "Dad, Mom left her work bag," Maddie called from the kitchen. Should I text her? I walked in to find the leather tote Rachel carried everywhere sitting open on the counter. Its contents spilled out like evidence at a crime scene. Her laptop, some client files, breath mints, and there, tucked between her planner and a pack of tissues, a small pharmacy bag. Viagra. My hands shook as I picked up the box. 60 tablets, prescribed to someone named Greg Ellison. Greg Ellison, Rachel's boss, the creative director at Morrison & Associates where my wife worked as an account executive. The same Greg Ellison who'd been mentioned in way too many of Rachel's work stories lately. The one with the black Range Rover and the corner office, and the wife who, according to Rachel, just doesn't understand him. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body as I opened the Victoria's Secret box. Red lace. Expensive. The kind of thing Rachel used to wear for me, back when she cared about making me happy. The receipt was still inside. Purchased yesterday, the same day she'd told me she was working late on the Henderson campaign. "Dad?" Maddie was staring at me with concern. "You look weird." I forced a smile and shoved everything back into Rachel's bag. "Just tired, sweetheart. Why don't you and Lucas start your homework?" As the kids headed upstairs, I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I Googled Greg Ellison, 44 years old. Married to a woman named Patricia for 15 years. 2 kids in private school. House in Highland Park worth about $3 million. The kind of guy who probably thought my suburban ranch house was quaint. I scrolled through his LinkedIn profile, his company bio, even found his Facebook page. There he was, grinning in family photos, accepting industry awards, posting motivational quotes about success and leadership. The kind of man who took what he wanted and never worried about the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at that message for a long time. 3 months ago, I would have believed it. 6 months ago, I would have offered to bring her dinner. A year ago, she would have asked me to. But now? Now I knew exactly what working late meant. I found Patricia Ellison's number in the company directory. Spouses were listed for emergency contacts. My finger hovered over the call button for 10 minutes before I finally pressed it. "Hello?" Her voice was crisp, professional. The voice of a woman who'd never had to wonder where her husband really was. "Mrs. Ellison? This is Nick Callahan. My wife Rachel works with your husband." "Oh yes, Rachel. Greg mentions her quite a bit. Is everything all right?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, I think there's something you should know." Patricia Ellison called me back at 2 in the morning, and she was screaming, "You son of a..." The line crackled with rage. I confronted him. I confronted Greg, and he admitted everything. 3 months, Nick. 3 months they've been carrying on, and I had no idea. I was sitting in my kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Rachel still wasn't home. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "Sorry?" Patricia laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. "Don't be sorry. Be ready, because I'm going to destroy both of them." She hung up, and I sat there in the dark, wondering what I'd just set in motion. Rachel came home at 3:47 a.m. I know because I was still awake, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. She slipped into bed like a ghost, careful not to wake me, smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. The next morning, she was gone before I got up. Left a note saying she had an early client meeting. I drove the kids to school and tried to act normal. Made their lunches, checked their backpacks, listened to Lucas complain about his math teacher. Normal dad stuff. But inside, I felt like I was falling apart. My phone rang as I was walking back to my car. Unknown number. Is this Nick Callahan? The voice was unfamiliar, female, excited. Who's asking? This is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 8 News. We're doing a story about workplace affairs in corporate Dallas. And we understand your wife. I hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number, same type of call. Then another, and another. Patricia Ellison hadn't just confronted her husband. She'd gone nuclear. By noon, my phone had 17 missed calls from reporters. 3 from Rachel's office, and 1 from Rachel herself, that I let go to voicemail. Nick, what did you do? Her voice was tight with panic. Patricia Ellison showed up at our office this morning with a lawyer and a private investigator. She's telling everyone that Greg and I... The message cut off. She called back. Call me. Now. We need to talk. Instead, I called my buddy Pete. Pete Martinez had been my best friend since college. He ran a small construction company, drank too much beer, and had the kind of loyalty you don't find anymore. If I was going to war, I wanted him in my corner. Holy crap, Nick, he said when I told him what was happening. You really kicked the hornet's nest. Yeah, well, the hornets were already in my house. So what's the plan? You filing for divorce? I thought about that. Divorce meant lawyers and custody battles and splitting everything down the middle. It meant Rachel getting half of what I'd worked for, half of the kids' time, half of the life I'd built. Not yet, I said. First, I want her to understand what she's lost. Meaning I'm going to make sure everyone in Dallas knows exactly who Rachel Callahan really is. Pete was quiet for a moment. You sure about this, man? Once you start down this road, there's no going back. I thought about the red lingerie, about the Viagra with another man's name on it, about 3 months of lies and late nights, and my wife coming home smelling like someone else. I'm sure. That afternoon, I drove to Morrison & Associates. It was a sleek glass building in downtown Dallas, the kind of place where image mattered more than substance. I'd been there exactly once before, for a company Christmas party, where Rachel had introduced me as my husband, like I was an accessory she'd rather leave at home. I parked across the street and waited. At 4:30, I saw him. Greg Ellison, walking out of the building like he owned the world. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. The kind of man who'd never had to work for anything in his life. He got into his Range Rover, black, just like Rachel had mentioned, and pulled out of the parking garage. I followed him. He drove straight to the Ritz-Carlton downtown, parked in the valet area like he belonged there. I watched him walk into the hotel bar, check his phone, order what looked like an expensive whiskey. 20 minutes later, Rachel walked in. She'd changed clothes since leaving for work that morning. The conservative business suit was gone, replaced by a black dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was down, her makeup perfect. She looked beautiful and confident, and absolutely nothing like the woman who'd been sharing my bed for 13 years. She kissed him, right there in the hotel bar, where anyone could see. Not a quick peck, but a real kiss, the kind she used to give me. I took pictures, lots of them. Then I drove home, uploaded the photos to my laptop, and started planning. If Rachel wanted to play games, I was going to show her how it was done. The school fundraiser was perfect. Every year, Westfield Elementary held their annual charity auction in the gymnasium, and every year, Rachel and I attended like the good suburban parents we pretended to be. This year, Rachel had tried to skip it. I'm just too busy with work, she'd said that morning, not meeting my eyes. You can handle it alone, right? Actually, I think you should come, I'd replied. The kids are expecting both of us. She'd agreed, reluctantly, probably because refusing would have looked suspicious. The gym was packed. Parents, teachers, school board members, basically everyone who mattered in our little corner of Dallas suburbia. Rachel worked the room like the professional she was, shaking hands and making small talk, playing the role of devoted mother and community member. She had no idea what was coming. I'd spent the week preparing, called in some favors, made some arrangements. Pete had helped, along with a couple of other friends who knew what Rachel had been up to. Word travels fast in suburban neighborhoods, especially when it involves scandal. The auction was in full swing when I made my move. I'd volunteered to help with the lost and found table, a boring job nobody else wanted, which made it perfect for my purposes. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone from the surprised auctioneer. "Before we continue, I'd like to make a special presentation." Rachel looked up from across the room, confusion flickering across her face. "As many of you know, my wife Rachel works in advertising. She's very good at creating compelling narratives and making people believe things that aren't necessarily true." I paused, letting that sink in. "Tonight, I'd like to share some of her recent creative work." I opened the box I'd placed on the table earlier, the same Victoria's Secret box, along with some additional items I'd collected over the past week. "This is a red lace lingerie set," I announced, holding it up for everyone to see. "Purchased by my wife last Tuesday. Not for me, unfortunately, but for her boss, Greg Ellison." The room went dead silent. "And this," I continued, pulling out the Viagra box, "belongs to Mr. Ellison as well. Apparently, he needs a little help keeping up with his extracurricular activities." Rachel had gone pale. She was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach me, but people were blocking her way, staring at her with a mixture of shock and fascination. "You see," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the gym's sound system, "my wife has been working very late lately. Team building exercises, she calls them. Very intensive, very physical team building." "Nick, stop." Rachel had finally reached the front of the room. Her face was flushed, her carefully applied makeup starting to smudge. "Please, just stop." "Stop what, honey? Telling the truth? Sharing your achievements with our friends and neighbors?" I smiled at her, the same smile I'd been giving her for 13 years. "I thought you'd be proud. After all, you've been working so hard to please your boss." Someone in the crowd gasped. I saw phones coming out, people starting to record. In 30 seconds, this would be all over social media. "The really impressive part," I continued, "is how dedicated she's been. 3 months of staying late, working weekends, even taking business trips to the Ritz-Carlton downtown. That's commitment." Rachel was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "You're destroying everything." "No, sweetheart, you already did that." Greg Ellison chose that moment to walk into the gym. He'd probably come looking for Rachel when she didn't answer his texts. He took one look at the scene, me at the microphone, Rachel crying, the lingerie displayed for everyone to see, and tried to back out. "Mr. Ellison," I called out cheerfully. "Perfect timing. Come on up here. I was just telling everyone about your special relationship with my wife." He bolted. I handed the microphone back to the stunned auctioneer and walked over to Rachel. She was surrounded by other parents now, some offering comfort, others just staring like she was a car accident they couldn't look away from. "The kids are at my sister's house," I said quietly. "I'll pick them up later. You might want to find somewhere else to stay tonight." "Nick, please. We can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her 15 years ago. She'd been beautiful and ambitious and full of life, but somewhere along the way, she'd become someone else. Someone who could lie to my face every morning and sleep next to me every night while planning her escape. "Yeah, it does," I said. I walked out of the gym, leaving her there with the wreckage of her reputation scattered around the lost and found table. Pete was waiting for me in the parking lot, grinning like an idiot. "Dude, that was epic. Did you see the look on her face?" I saw it." So what's next?" I thought about Greg Ellison running away like a coward. About Rachel's tears, which might have been real or might have been just another performance. About my kids, who are going to have to live with the fallout from tonight. Next, we make sure Greg understands that actions have consequences. Finding Greg Ellison's house wasn't hard. Highland Park addresses are public record, and his Range Rover made him easy to spot. The man had no concept of subtlety. I spent 3 days watching his routine. Left for work at 7:30 sharp, usually stopped at the same Starbucks, parked in the same spot at Morrison & Associates. Predictable, arrogant, the kind of guy who thought rules were for other people. His wife Patricia had already filed for divorce, according to the papers Pete's lawyer friend had pulled. She wasn't messing around. She wanted everything, including the Highland Park house and full custody of their kids. Good for her, but that wasn't enough for me. Greg Ellison had taken something that belonged to me, and I wanted him to understand what that felt like. Thursday morning, I followed him to work. He parked in his reserved spot, strutted into the building like he owned it, probably thinking the worst was behind him. Poor guy had no idea what was coming. I waited until lunch, then made my move. The beauty of being an IT consultant is that people assume you belong wherever there are computers. I walked into Morrison & Associates, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, carrying a laptop bag, and looking like I had every right to be there. "Here for the network maintenance," I told the receptionist, flashing a fake work order I'd printed that morning. "Oh, right. Mr. Ellison mentioned that. His computer's been acting up. Perfect." Greg's corner office was everything I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, awards and photos covering the walls. The desk was mahogany, probably cost more than most people's cars. I got to work. First, I installed a little program on his computer. Nothing malicious, just something that would make his presentations more interesting. Every time he opened PowerPoint, it would
She left this in your apron. You didn't even throw it away. You forgot a woman's lipstick in your—
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
randomly insert photos from his personal files, including some very personal photos he probably thought were private. Then I moved on to his car. The Range Rover was parked right outside the building, and Greg had left it unlocked. Typical rich guy arrogance. I popped the hood and disconnected the battery cable. Not enough to strand him, just enough to make the car act up at inconvenient times. But the real masterpiece was what I did to the interior. I'd brought a small bottle of fish sauce, the kind they use in Vietnamese restaurants. Incredibly pungent, nearly impossible to get rid of once it soaks into fabric. I carefully applied a few drops to the underside of each seat, where they wouldn't be visible, but would slowly release their aroma as the car warmed up. By the time I was done, Greg Ellison was going to have the most expensive mobile seafood market in Dallas. I was walking back to my car when my phone rang. "Rachel, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "Do we? Nick, please, this has gone far enough. You've made your point." "Have I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're still lying to me." Silence on the other end. "Then, what do you want?" "I want you to understand what you've thrown away. I want you to feel what I felt when I found that lingerie. I want you to know that actions have consequences. You're scaring me." "Good. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray 13 years of marriage." I hung up and drove home. That evening, I got a call from Pete. He was laughing so hard he could barely speak. "Dude, you have to see this. Check Morrison & Associates' Facebook page." I pulled it up on my laptop. Someone had posted a video from that afternoon's client presentation. There was Greg Ellison, standing in front of a room full of potential customers, trying to pitch some advertising campaign. Everything was going smoothly until he clicked to the next slide. Instead of market research data, the screen filled with a photo of Greg and Rachel in what was clearly a hotel room, both of them in various states of undress. The room erupted in shocked gasps and nervous laughter. Greg frantically clicked his remote, but the damage was done. The next slide was even worse, a close-up shot that left nothing to the imagination. "Technical difficulties," Greg stammered, his face bright red. "We're experiencing some technical difficulties." The video had already been shared 47 times. By tomorrow, it would be everywhere. My phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Ellison. "Was this you?" she asked. "I have no idea what you're talking about." She laughed, a sound like broken glass. "Well, whoever it was, they deserve a medal. Greg just called me, crying like a baby. Apparently his car broke down in the middle of rush hour traffic, and when the tow truck came, the driver refused to get in because of the smell. That's unfortunate. He's staying at a motel tonight, the Comfort Inn on I-35. Thought you might like to know." After she hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled. Greg Ellison was learning what it felt like to lose everything. His marriage was over, his reputation was destroyed, and his precious Range Rover smelled like a fish market. But I wasn't done yet. Rachel had made her choice 3 months ago, when she decided I wasn't enough for her anymore. Now she was going to live with the consequences. And so was everyone who'd helped her. Tasha Williams had been Rachel's best friend since college. Blonde, bubbly, and absolutely toxic, the kind of woman who lived for drama and gossip. She worked in Rachel's department at Morrison & Associates, and according to what I'd pieced together, she'd been covering for Rachel's affair from the beginning. I'd always hated Tasha, but Rachel insisted she was harmless. "Just a little immature," she'd say whenever I complained about Tasha's influence on our social life. It turns out, Tasha wasn't just immature. She was actively malicious. I found this out when I intercepted a text message thread between her and Rachel. Rachel had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered, and curiosity got the better of me. The messages went back weeks. Tasha giving Rachel advice on how to hide the affair, where to meet Greg, what lies to tell me. She'd even helped Rachel pick out the lingerie. Make sure you get the red set, one message read. Men are so predictable. He'll think he's getting something special. Another. Nick's such a loser. You deserve better. Greg's going to leave Patricia for you. Just wait and see. And the one that made my blood boil. If Nick ever finds out, just gaslight him. Make him think he's crazy. Works every time. So Tasha wasn't just an accomplice. She was the architect. I screenshot every message, then put the phone back where I'd found it. That weekend, Tasha was throwing one of her famous dinner parties. She lived in a trendy loft downtown, the kind of place that was all exposed brick and industrial fixtures. Rachel had been planning to go, but after the school fundraiser incident, she was keeping a low profile. I think I'll stay home, she'd said, not meeting my eyes. Actually, you should go, I'd replied. Tasha's expecting you. Rachel looked surprised. You want me to go? I think it would be good for you to get out, see your friends. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already made my own plans for the evening. Tasha's building had terrible security. The doorman was usually drunk, and the cameras hadn't worked in months. I slipped in through the parking garage and took the elevator to the 8th floor. The party was in full swing. I could hear laughter and music through the thin walls. I found the utility closet, just like Pete's building contractor friend had described, and got to work. Tasha's loft was directly below the building's main water line. One small adjustment to the valve, and gravity would do the rest. I waited until I heard the party winding down, then made the call. Fire department. I'd like to report a water leak at 1247 Commerce Street. Looks pretty serious. 20 minutes later, Tasha's loft was flooded. Not just a little water damage. We're talking about a full-scale indoor tsunami. Her hardwood floors were ruined, her furniture soaked, her electronics destroyed. And the best part? Her insurance wouldn't cover it, because the leak originated from a building maintenance issue, not her unit specifically. But that was just the opening act. While Tasha was dealing with the flood, I paid a visit to her office at Morrison & Associates. Security was light on weekends, and I still had my temporary access card from the network maintenance visit. Tasha's desk was a monument to her own vanity. Photos of herself everywhere, motivational quotes about success and ambition, a collection of expensive pens she probably never used. I planted a small recording device under her desk, the kind private investigators use for divorce cases. Then I hacked into her computer and installed some monitoring software. For the next week, I listened to every conversation Tasha had at work. Most of it was boring office gossip, but eventually I hit gold. Rachel's being such a baby about this, Tasha was saying to someone on the phone. So what if Nick found out? She should just divorce him and move in with Greg. But Greg's not leaving his wife, the other voice replied. I recognized it as Priya, another one of Rachel's work friends. He will. Men always do, once the pressure gets bad enough. Patricia's just making it easy for him by filing first. What if she doesn't want to wait? Tasha laughed. Then we go to plan B. Rachel's been documenting all of Nick's angry behavior since this started. The yelling, the threats, the public humiliation. Any divorce lawyer would call it emotional abuse. My hands clenched into fists. They were planning to frame me. She's already got photos of the bruises, Tasha continued. What bruises? The ones she gave herself, obviously. A little makeup, some strategic photography, and Nick looks like a wife beater. She gets full custody, full alimony. And Greg gets to play the hero who rescued her from an abusive marriage. I'd heard enough. That night, I called Patricia Ellison. I have something you need to hear, I said. I played her the recording. All of it. Tasha's plan, Rachel's fake evidence, the whole conspiracy to destroy my life and steal my children. Patricia was quiet for a long time after it finished. Those witches, she finally said. They're not just cheating, they're criminals. What do you want to do about it? I want to destroy them, all of them. I was hoping you'd say that. We spent the next hour planning. Patricia had resources I didn't, private investigators, forensic accountants, lawyers who specialized in high-stakes divorces. She also had something even more valuable, absolute rage at being betrayed by people she'd trusted. By the time we hung up, Tasha Williams and her co-conspirators were going to wish they'd never heard the names Callahan or Ellison. The war was about to get nuclear. The Morrison and Associates annual client gala was the event of the year for Dallas advertising. 500 people, including every major business owner in the city, all gathered at the Omni Hotel ballroom to network, drink expensive wine, and pretend they enjoyed each other's company. Rachel had been looking forward to it for months. Before everything exploded, she'd bought a new dress, made appointments for hair and makeup, planned to use the evening to advance her career. Now, she was terrified to show her face in public. "Maybe I should skip it," she said, staring at herself in the bedroom mirror. She looked beautiful, as always, but there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Don't be ridiculous," I replied, adjusting my tie. "You've worked too hard to let gossip keep you away." She turned to look at me, suspicion flickering across her face. "Why are you being so supportive?" "Because you're still my wife, and because I want people to see us together, united. Show them that whatever they've heard is just rumors. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did want people to see us together. Just not for the reasons she thought." The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a string quartet playing in the corner. The kind of elegant affair that made everyone feel sophisticated and important. Rachel worked the room like the professional she was, shaking hands and making small talk, pretending everything was normal. A few people gave her strange looks, but most were too polite to say anything directly. Greg Ellison was there too, standing near the bar with a group of other executives. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. His wife Patricia was notably absent, which wasn't surprising given their very public divorce proceedings. I excused myself from Rachel's side and made my way to the hotel's AV control room. The door was locked, but I'd come prepared. Pete's locksmith friend had taught me a few tricks. The control room was exactly what I'd expected. Banks of monitors, audio equipment, computers running the presentation software for the evening's program. I plugged in my USB drive and got to work. It took me 15 minutes to upload my files and integrate them into the evening's slideshow. The gala always ended with a presentation showcasing Morrison and Associates' biggest successes of the year. Tonight, they were going to get a very different kind of show. I slipped back into the ballroom just as dinner was being served. Rachel was at our table, chatting with potential clients, playing the role of successful businesswoman. She had no idea what was coming. The presentation started at 9 o'clock. The lights dimmed, and the CEO of Morrison and Associates took the stage to introduce the company's achievements. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an incredible year for our agency," he began. "Our creative teams have produced some truly outstanding work." The first few slides were normal. Logos, campaign images, client testimonials. Rachel relaxed in her chair, probably thinking she'd worried for nothing. Then slide 15 appeared on the screen. It was a photo of Rachel and Greg in the hotel room, the same one that had appeared during his client presentation. But this time it was blown up to fill the entire wall behind the stage. Crystal clear, unmistakably them, unmistakably intimate. The ballroom erupted in gasps and shocked murmurs. The CEO fumbled with his remote, trying to advance to the next slide, but the image wouldn't change. "Technical difficulties," he stammered, just like Greg had done. But this wasn't a technical difficulty. This was exactly what I'd programmed to happen. The next slide was worse, and the one after that. A complete catalog of Rachel and Greg's affair, displayed in high definition for 500 of Dallas's most influential business people. Rachel was on her feet, her face white with horror. "Turn it off," she screamed. "Turn it off!" But the show wasn't over. The final slide contained audio, a recording of the conversation between Tasha and Priya about framing me for abuse, complete with transcripts scrolling across the screen. "She's already got photos of the bruises," Tasha's voice echoed through the ballroom's sound system. "The ones she gave herself, obviously." The room went dead silent, 500 people staring at Rachel like she was some kind of monster. Greg tried to run, just like he had at the school fundraiser. But this time, I was ready for him. I intercepted him in the hotel lobby, where a small crowd had already gathered. Word was spreading fast. People were pulling out their phones, taking pictures, posting to social media. "Going somewhere, Greg?" I asked pleasantly. He spun around, his face flushed with rage and embarrassment. "You son of a—" "Careful," I interrupted. "There are cameras everywhere." He looked around and realized I was right. Hotel security, News crews that had somehow already arrived, dozens of phones recording everything. "You've destroyed everything," he said, his voice breaking. "My marriage, my career, my reputation." "No, Greg. You did that when you decided to sleep with my wife. She came on to me. She pursued me." I smiled. "And you were powerless to resist, right? Poor Greg, victimized by the evil seductress." He lunged at me then, probably thinking he could salvage some dignity by throwing a punch. But I'd been expecting it. I stepped aside, and Greg's momentum carried him straight into the hotel's decorative fountain. He went down hard, his expensive suit soaked, his dignity in tatters. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Someone started chanting, "Jerry, Jerry," like we were on a talk show. Hotel security moved in to break things up, but the damage was done. Greg Ellison, creative director of one of Dallas's most prestigious advertising agencies, was sitting in a fountain, like a rejected contestant on a reality show. I walked back into the ballroom to find Rachel surrounded by reporters. She was crying, mascara streaming down her cheeks, trying to explain herself to people who'd already made up their minds. "It's not what it looks like," she kept saying. "You don't understand." But they did understand. Everyone understood perfectly. I pushed through the crowd and took Rachel's arm. "Come on," I said. "Time to go home." She looked at me with something like gratitude, probably thinking I was rescuing her from the mob. I wasn't rescuing her. I was just making sure she got a front row seat for the finale. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot.